We can bring in Dr. James Boys, who's a Professor of International Politics at the American International University in London. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's pick up some of those issues that James was talking about. Iran, a massive issue for these two men. Do you see that there will be a slight shift perhaps from America from their normal hardline position, a coming together of a stance on this?
Well, it would be very interesting if that does occur. Over the last couple of years, of course, Britain and the European powers have taken a much more diplomatic approach as opposed to, I think James Landau quite referred to it as a robust approach from the United States. It was even suggested that Jack Straw lost his job as Foreign Secretary because he was taking too much of a diplomatic approach. So it would certainly take a good 180-degree turn from the Americans to embrace a more diplomatic approach and really a rejection of their approach over the last 8 years. So if it does, it'll be a surprising coup, let's put it this way.
The other thing that they may well be discussing is the whole issue of the global economy and the credit crunch. Now, politically, cynics might say there's some mileage for Gordon Brown in playing this on a large scale and saying, you know, we're all in this together, we've been discussing this, of course it's dreadful in America, almost to say the economy is not just our problem in the UK, it's all being affected by what's happening in the States and more globally.
Well, this of course is a problem that Gordon Brown can hardly get away from. For 10 years he prided himself as being the Iron Chancellor, of course, so there's very few people he can turn around to and say, well actually it was somebody else's fault, when of course it was his job. The easy way to go, of course, is to blame the subprime market in the United States, which of course has had a massive impact in America. There's lots of talk about whether America is either in or heading for a recession. Anybody who owns a house in this country is, of course, very much aware of the economic problems in this country. So it's very much in Brown's interest to try to push this across the pond, I think, and say we're all listening together. It's not a British problem, it's a worldwide, global problem.
Bush is on this tour of Europe as he looks towards the end of his presidency. He's been quoted talking about popularity and saying, you know, it's not about being popular, it's not about core principles, not compromising those. When you assess Bush the man, do you think, though, do you trust those comments, or do you think all politicians, as they're moving towards the twilight of their presidency, will want to say, look at how well I did, actually people did like me, really?
Well, it's kind of ironic, and it never trust someone who says it's not about popularity when they've got an approval ratings in the high 20s or low 30s. Bill Clinton at this point in his career had an approval rating of over 60%. I know Bush is trying to take a long-term view and say, well, history will judge me, you know, decades down the line, and it certainly will, but how differently they will judge it from now, I suggest will be a very interesting question to consider.
OK, Dr. James Boys, thanks very much. Obviously more from the horse's mouths, should we say, at 10:30 when we have a press conference from Bush and Brown.